Okay guys, as promised, it's here. BC Racing BR Series coilovers. About to open the box up. Let's get to the install. Yeah, so you know when you do anything yourself, you run into issues, you run into problems. There really aren't many videos online how to replace struts on a Touareg. I know it's very similar to the Cayenne, but there isn't one specific to the Touareg. So what I did was I just winged it. I looked at every bolt that needed to come off. I know I've seen forums where you don't need to loosen any bolts that have to do with alignment. Of course, you have to get in alignment after you lower your vehicle. So yeah, so running into snags and stuff. You know, shout out to all the YouTubers that videotape everything or vlog everything that they do. Sometimes it takes a lot to set up a camera, and then you have to worry about knocking it over, and if you don't have the right lens, you can't have it far enough away. It's a whole bunch of stuff. So I went ahead and installed the coilovers last night. Here is a video of me unpacking them and giving a little description of them. No fancy knives over here. Got some packaging. Even got some stickers in the box. Kind of neat. BC Racing. Now, even though it's a Touareg, when I ordered it for Touareg, it came in as a 02 to 2010 Cayenne. So they are the same. They are the same fitment when it comes to coilovers. There's actually a warranty card in here, which is kind of neat. All right. Let's get to the coils. Oh yeah. They look legit, I'll tell you that much. So we have a front coil over here. Let's go up to the camera. So as you can see, that's what the coilover looks like. It's the front, top plate, adjustment. I believe there's preload already on it, but don't know for sure. We're gonna see. I'm just gonna leave it factory. Both of them look to be adjusted the same. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and install them, and I will adjust them after I get them all four corners installed. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to take the wheel off and I'm going to adjust the coilovers, and I'll go through all the bolts that I loosened to get the coilovers off. Again, it's not going to be a video of me showing it, but I'm going to explain it in great detail for you. So let me just get this wheel taken off, and I'll show you the coilovers installed, and I'll go through all the bolts that I took off. Loose. Oh, key tape so you don't scratch it up. I did this starting today, so a lot of my barrels in here are kind of scratched up from the bolts. Not only the bolts, but the socket. Okay. Okay, let me bring the camera in here, show you. Okay, so here are the coilovers installed. As you can see, got my camera on a tripod right now. So this bolt here has to come off, which loosens this link, sway bar link. One thing you run into is back here, you have the drive shaft boot, and when you try to take this bolt out, because you can see there isn't really much space here, So when you try to take this long bolt out, it gets caught on the drive shaft. So most forums and most instructional videos and any kind of repair help you find online will tell you to loosen the drive shaft. I wasn't about to do that. I don't feel like finding a triple square to fit that. I think I have one, but I just didn't want to deal with any excess work. So what I did was I ended up loosening the lower bolt as well and pretty much removing this whole sway bar here. I just removed the whole thing. That ended up being easier than trying to loosen those bolts. It is a little work trying to line these holes back up on this, because this wants to fall down, this wants to lower, and this wants to raise up, especially if you haven't done the other side yet. So luckily when you install the new coilover, when you install the new coilover, it's a lot shorter than the stock one, so you don't really have much trouble lining up the holes in the sway bar end link and then that sway bar. It lines up pretty easy. Okay, next, I've seen some videos online where you had to loosen bolts in under the hood to take this whole upper control arm out, to take the whole part out as a whole to replace it. But of course I was like, that can't be true. So that's true if you need to replace this ball joint here. If you need to replace this ball joint, then you have to take out this whole entire thing. Just to replace the suspension, there are four bolts. You can see the 4 bolts right there. There's one right there. There's 2, 3, and there's another one on the other side. If I can get it, 4. You loosen those bolts, and the top is loose. Now, before you install this, I would recommend you decide on what you want your dampening to be, or your softness and your stiffness. When it came out of the box, I started where it went all the way to hard, and I think BC Racing had it set at like 6 clicks from hard. I looked online, I've seen a couple guys say they do 10 from hard and it feels more like a Cayenne in sport mode. So what I did was, and I saw some guys that said they did 15 just for the softness. So I did 10 in the front, and I just did that assuming that the motor side of the car weighs more than the back. So I did the back at like 15, I did the front at like 10. So hopefully that's not too bad. If it is, the back is a little easier. It's less bolts to take out the back than to take out the front. So if the front's straight, I can take the back out. So again, it's just these 4 bolts that drops it from the top. Again, doing that bolt there and that bolt there will loosen it from the sway bar, and then you have the bolt down here. This is the bolt that connects it to the lower control arm. And it's a 21, just in case you want to know, it's a 21 millimeter bolt right there for the control arm. The lower control arm, and this bolt here to the sway bar end links, those are 18s. And then for the upper top hat bolts or nuts, those are 14 millimeter. So if you have a 21, an 18, and a 14, you are good to go. So also here, 18. Ball joint, upper control arm, that has to come out because you need to lower this whole spindle in order to take this coilover or the old shock out. Like again, the old shock is a lot taller than this one, so it's a little hard getting it out. You have to loosen this cable here for the brake pad sensors. You loosen this cable. There's actually a little notch back there where that kind of sits in. You loosen that and you get a lot of slack. You can see how it curls around and up and around, so you get a lot of slack when you loosen that. And then you can drop the coilover out, get it around this, and then you're good to go. One trick is to make sure when you take it out, make sure you push this whole thing back this way. And you'll know what I mean when you do it. You push this whole thing back this way, and then this whole thing kind of falls out forward. It falls out this way, and then you can get it around this. Again, you can get it around that, and it comes right out. So now I'm going to adjust it. So right now, I measured it, and it's sitting at 4 inches from the fender to the top of the tire. I want 3 inches. It was like 6 with stock suspension. I swear it was like 6. So I figured out that I just trial and error. I don't have a caliper. A caliper is your best tool here, but I measured the width of a USB cord. Like I measured the width of a USB cord, and that's how the distance between the lower lock nut, lock screw, whatever it's termed, and the top one. That's the distance that I want to have between there, and then I'll see where that puts me at. I kind of want to have a little bit of a rake. I kind of want to have the back a little bit higher than the front. That'll actually also even out the softness in the back versus the softness in the front. So when the front kind of has a rebound, the back will have a little bit higher, so that softer rebound. That's just my logic. I don't know. We'll see how it works. Of course, you can always adjust it. So again, here is the here's where I'm going to start adjusting it. Now, if you don't know about adjusting coilovers, there's a lot of videos online. When my first set of coilovers, I made the mistake of loosening this bottom lock nut here and then dropping this, thinking that actually is what lowered the coilovers. Well, years later, or months later, maybe about a year later, after I got more knowledge about coilovers and installing a few, I noticed that this is the preload setting. So you don't mess with this setting. I think BC already has the preload set in there for you. You could adjust it if you want it to be a higher or lower preload, but I'm just going to leave it at stock BC setting, and I'm just going to lower the height. So these two should be tight all times unless you're adjusting the preload. So keep these really, really tight. I actually used a flathead and a little bit in a dead blow hammer just to give it a little tap to make sure that this bottom one is these two here were tight together. You loosen this one and it raises up, and then you drop in the whole shock with this these lock nuts spin, and they spin down into here. So that's what essentially lowers and raises your coilovers. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I'm gonna have to tighten the top. Okay, so first thing, grab a corner, and I'm just gonna grab a hammer. Good. I need to loosen this bottom one here. It's kind of tight. There we go. Loosen that. And what I do is I raise it up to where I want to go. Let me grab. Oh, here we go. So here's my USB. This is the width or the space between the top and bottom that I want to go. So I just raise this bottom one up to it till it touches, until it gets pretty firm, but not too firm. Just until it touches. Leave it there. So that's gonna be my space from the top and the bottom. You see that's an equal distance. So where it is now, it's probably gonna be lower than that. So I wanted it around 3 inches, and usually when you lower it very little, you're gonna see minimal height difference. So I'm gonna lower it that much. If that brings me down to about 2.5, then I'll just raise it back up. But I don't want it too low. So we'll see. And so I wanna go back the other way because I wanna lower it. Guys, I don't know if you got all that, but I think my hands kind of screwed with the focus on the camera. So again, what I did was I tightened this bottom one, and then I make sure I tighten the one under that large one. I tightened it really good against the top one, and then I loosened the bottom one. I screwed it up that way, and then I just brought these two down to where the gap is between there. You may have seen that. I don't know if you did or not, but. So it's lowered, and I'm gonna put the wheel back on so I can show you what that looks like. All right. Hose are lined up there. Where's the gun? There we go. I know I should be using a jack stand right now, but I knew this wasn't going to take very long. I am using only a 2-ton jack on a 5100, I think is how much these weigh, pound vehicle. But it's only one side, so you break 5104, it's not 2 tons by any means. This is normally how I do it. I hand tight all the way down till it stops. I'm pretty sure you guys have already put wheels on before, so I don't have to really tell you that. Alright, hand down till it stops. Then I grab my impact gun and I give it a couple turns in a star pattern. Then we're good to lower it. So that's where we're sitting. I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks so good I might just leave it like that. Okay, so again, here's how it looks. I'll go to the other side. So they're about the same. I had a block of wood that was about 3.5 inches wide. So here's the back. They look very close now. I almost want to just leave it like that. So let's see, the back is at, again, this is 3.5 inches and it fits in there. So that's 3.5 inches. Let's see, the front is going to be about the same. So we're even, 3.5 inches all the way around. I wanted to go down to 3, but I think I'm going to leave it at 3.5. Again, let's take a look at that. I think that looks really good. Oh, I want to point out some things. Jack stand safety. These cars come with factory pinch welds in order to jack the car up with the factory jack, which in my, whoops, sorry about that, which in mine it is right there. So right there is where the pinch weld goes. I just had to jack up to kind of help me lift up that sway bar, but I ended up going to buy a jack because I got so pissed off. So down here, right there, oh, I can't get any light in there. Okay, so I got my light. Let me get back up under here. Right there. See that right there, where that hole is at? That is where you would want to put your jack, like the floor jack that I have right over here. That is where you want to put your jack. And right there is where you want to put your jack stand. So your jack stand goes there. You'll see it. It's like a I think it's a lower control arm or a subframe bolt. And you want to jack it right there. Now there's the pinch weld that you would put the stock jack. So they have two spaces for you. I actually looked that up online to see that was the best point. On the back, it's different. On the back, there isn't really a spot to do it. So here's the factory point. I'm sorry if this video is a little crooked. Here's the factory spot that it goes right there. And up under here, let's see if I can find it. Right there. It's right, see where that extension is? Right above the extension. It's kind of hard to see, but it's like you see that black piece right there, right below the right in the camera, right below that exhaust pipe. Right there is where you would want to jack up from the rear, and that is actually going to, let me see if I can actually zoom in on that. Right there, yeah, right there is where you can actually see it. That's where you want to, right there, right? That's where you want to jack it up from the rear. That'll lift the rear of both tires, and then you can hit it, and then you can put your jack stand right there on this bolt on the rear. So again, jack it up from that spot over there, and then use this as your jack stand point. Okay, let's look at the rear bolts. Again, I got my cell phone right there to kind of shine up, and when you look up top, let's see if I can see it. It's kind of hard to see, and I'm not gonna be able to show you in here because of the way it's easier with the suspension off. But there are 4 bolts that hold on that that shock top. Let me see. I think I can see one. I know I'm trying to do this in a bad angle, guys. I apologize for that. I should have did this last night whenever I installed the coilovers, but sometimes you just get so, and I can't even focus on it. But there's a bolt right there to the left. It's kind of very hard to see. That it's 4 bolts that's up there, plus this one right here. That's the one that connects the lower to the upper. Now you can see the space between the rear. Rear can go really low, but where it's sitting right now, I kind of like it. It's right at the same height, so I'm just going to leave that where it's at. I did over tighten this bolt. I was looking online and I've seen some guys say the lower bolt to the spindle is 111 foot-pounds. Well, that's true for the front. For the rear, it's only like 66, I think, foot-pounds for the rear. So I did the left side right, but this side is really over tightened. I'm tempted to just go, I'm pretty sure I stretched the bolt. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and leave it for now, and once I hit up Volkswagen next time, I'm going to just get a new bolt and just replace that bolt. Again, because it's a shorter shock than the stock, it should be pretty easy, just a little wiggle and it'll come right out. Or I can just hammer it out without trying to strip the threads, because it doesn't matter. Once I get that out, I'm putting a brand new bolt in anyway. So that's the only mistake that I made. Top ones on here are 44 foot-pounds. Oh, actually, I can see a bolt right there. So if you look, right there is one of the bolts. And that it's connected to like a little U-shape. I can't describe it, but that's one of the bolts right there that you have to get out. And there's 4 of them. So once you take those 4 bolts out, the whole thing drops out after you loosen this. So it's really only 5 bolts. And once you loosen those 5 bolts, you're good to go. Alright.